Emily came home late that night after finishing another long shift at work. She was tired, dreaming of a hot shower and a few quiet moments before bed. But as soon as she opened the door, something felt off. The lights were on in the living room. Ryan, her husband, was sitting on the couch. Across from him sat Chloe, his younger sister, her hands resting on her round belly. Emily froze in the doorway. The air was heavy, too still. She forced a small smile. "Hey, what's going on?" Ryan didn't look up. His voice was calm but cold. "Chloe's moving in for a while. She needs some space." Emily blinked, not sure she'd heard right. "Moving in?" "Yeah," Ryan said, still avoiding her eyes. "She's had a rough time. It's just until she figures things out. You can take the guest room. Or maybe stay with your mom for a bit." For a few seconds, Emily just stood there, her bag still hanging from her shoulder. The words didn't make sense. Stay with your mom? In her own house? The silence grew thick. Chloe shifted awkwardly, looking at the floor, one hand rubbing her belly as if to avoid Emily's eyes. Emily laughed, a short, broken sound. "You're joking, right?" Ryan finally looked up, his face unreadable. "Don't make this difficult, Em. She's family." The words hit her harder than any shout could have. Family. The word that had once meant her and him against the world now excluded her completely. Emily swallowed hard, trying to keep her voice steady. "And what am I, Ryan? A guest in my own home." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Please, not tonight. Chloe's had a long day." Something inside Emily cracked. The woman she had stood beside through every family dinner, every argument, every struggle, now sat in her living room like she owned it. And the man she loved, the one she had supported for years, couldn't even look her in the eye. The walls suddenly felt closer, the air colder. She wanted to scream, to throw something, to make him see what he was doing, but instead, she stood still, quiet, too quiet. After a long pause, she turned and walked down the hall to the guest room. Each step felt heavier than the last. Her throat burned, her hands trembled, but she didn't let a single tear fall. When she reached the door, she stopped for a moment and looked back toward the living room. Ryan was already talking softly to Chloe, his tone gentle, the same softness she hadn't heard from him in months. Emily closed the door quietly behind her. In that moment, she realized something that hurt more than anything else. She was no longer the woman of this house. She was just someone passing through, a stranger in the home she built. And as she sat on the edge of the guest bed, the weight of it all hit her. She was a prisoner in her own home. Before everything fell apart, Emily believed she had built a good life, not perfect, but filled with love and hope. She met Ryan in college. He was funny, full of dreams, always talking about the kind of future they'd have one day. They didn't have much back then, just cheap coffee dates, shared bus rides, and promises whispered under city lights. Emily loved how hard he worked, how he never gave up even when money was tight. After they got married, things weren't easy. Ryan lost his first job, and debts started to pile up. Emily was the one who stayed calm. She took extra shifts, managed bills, and even used her savings to help pay off his loans. Whenever Ryan broke down and said, "I don't deserve you," she'd smile and say, "We're a team." She meant it. Everything she did, every late night, every sacrifice, was for the life they were building together. When they finally bought their small house, Emily felt proud. It wasn't fancy, but it was theirs. She painted the walls herself, planted flowers by the porch, and filled the rooms with warmth. Ryan seemed happy too, at least in the beginning. But slowly things started to change. It began when Chloe, Ryan's younger sister, came back into their lives. Chloe had always been the center of attention in their family, spoiled, dramatic, and used to getting her way. Their parents had always cleaned up her messes, and when they passed away, Ryan took over that role. Emily tried to get along with her at first. She even helped Chloe find a job and lent her money a few times. But Chloe never really changed. She always found a way to make everything about herself. And Ryan, out of guilt or love, kept defending her. As months passed, Emily began to feel alone in her marriage. Ryan stopped talking to her the way he used to. He was always tired, distracted, or too busy. When she tried to ask what was wrong, he'd say, "You're overthinking, Em. Everything's fine." But everything wasn't fine. The warmth between them faded. Dinners became quiet. Even small things, like his phone buzzing late at night, made her chest tighten. One evening, Emily sat at a cafe with her best friend, Tara. Tara had known her since childhood and could see the pain behind her forced smile. "He's changing the rules on you, Em," Tara said softly, stirring her coffee. "Don't let him make you feel like you don't belong in your own marriage." Emily looked down at her cup, her voice barely a whisper. I keep thinking if I'm patient, he'll come back. The man I married." Tara reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You've already given him everything. Don't lose yourself trying to save what's already breaking." But Emily couldn't leave. Not yet. Part of her still believed love could fix things. Another part was scared. Scared of being alone after giving so much. Scared of starting over. At home, she tried harder. Cooked his favorite meals, planned small surprises, kept the house spotless. But nothing changed. Ryan barely noticed. Then came the late nights. The excuses. "I've got work to finish. Chloe's having a tough time. Don't wait up." Emily began to sense something slipping. Not just Ryan's attention, but the very foundation of her marriage. She told herself it was just a phase, that every couple went through rough times. But deep down, she felt a quiet dread. Like she was standing on a bridge that was cracking beneath her feet. She still remembered the night she sat alone in their living room, looking at old photos on her phone. In one, Ryan was smiling, holding her hand at their wedding. His eyes had been full of love. She wondered when those eyes stopped seeing her. Still, she held on. Because that's who Emily was, loyal, hopeful, forgiving. She couldn't imagine walking away from someone she once built her whole world around. But what she didn't know then was that the life she had worked so hard to build was already crumbling. And the people she trusted most were the ones shaking the walls from within. Days passed, and Chloe slowly took over the house. What was once Emily's peaceful home began to feel like a battlefield. Chloe moved her things into the living room, spread her clothes around, and even changed the curtains without asking. She cooked whatever she liked, left dishes in the sink, and talked loudly on the phone as if she owned the place. Emily tried to stay calm. She told herself it was temporary, that Chloe just needed time. But it was hard, really hard. Watching her husband treat his sister like a queen while ignoring her completely. Every time Emily tried to speak up, Ryan defended Chloe. "Chloe's pregnant, Em," he would say. "You could be a little more understanding." Understanding. That word started to feel like poison. Emily had been understanding for too long. Working late, paying bills, forgiving cold silences. But now, even in her own kitchen, she felt like an outsider. One afternoon, Emily came home early and found Chloe sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, feet on the coffee table. The house smelled like burnt food. "Chloe, did you use the oven?" "It's on," Emily asked, walking toward it. Chloe didn't even look up. "Yeah, I tried to make a pie, but your oven's too slow. You should tell Ryan to buy a new one." Emily's jaw tightened. "My oven? My kitchen?" She bit her tongue and turned it off, trying not to explode. When Ryan came home later, Chloe made a big scene. "Emily snapped at me today," she said in a hurt tone. "I'm just trying to help around here, but she makes me feel unwanted." Ryan looked at Emily, disappointment in his eyes. "Oh really, eh? She's just trying to adjust." Emily couldn't believe it. "Ryan, I didn't snap at her. She left the oven on. The house could have caught fire." But he didn't care. He sighed and muttered, "You're being too harsh." That night, Emily lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The man beside her was a stranger now, silent, cold, distant. She wondered when her marriage had turned into a game she couldn't win. The breaking point came a week later during a family dinner. Ryan's cousins had come over, and Chloe sat at the head of the table like she was the hostess. Emily stayed quiet, helping serve food, trying not to make things worse. But Chloe couldn't resist. She smiled sweetly and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Some women just can't handle their place in a marriage. They get jealous when their husband actually cares about family." Everyone went silent. The words hung in the air like smoke. Emily froze, her hands shaking. She looked at Ryan, hoping he'd speak up, defend her, correct Chloe, say something. But he didn't. He just kept eating, eyes down, pretending he didn't hear. The humiliation burned. Emily felt her throat tighten, her eyes sting. She stood up quietly, forcing a smile. "Excuse me," she said and walked out. In the bathroom, she finally let the tears fall. Her reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger. Tired, broken, small. She pressed a hand to her chest, trying to breathe. That night, when everyone was asleep, Ryan came into the bedroom. His voice was flat. "Maybe this arrangement isn't working," he said. "Maybe you should leave for a while. Go stay with your mom until things calm down." Emily sat up slowly, staring at him in disbelief. "You're asking me to leave my home?" He didn't answer. For a long time, she just sat there in silence, feeling her heart shatter piece by piece. Then she got up, walked to the closet, and quietly packed a small bag. But as she zipped it shut, something inside her shifted. The hurt was still there, sharp and deep, but under it, something colder began to form. No, she thought. Not yet. She wouldn't leave. Not now. She wiped her tears, placed the bag under the bed, and looked at the closed door. If Ryan and Chloe thought she was weak, they were about to find out how wrong they were. Emily began noticing small things that didn't make sense. Ryan started coming home late, always with the same excuse. Work ran long or Chloe needed help. Sometimes he wouldn't come home at all until after midnight. When she asked where he'd been, he'd get defensive, saying, "Why are you acting like my mother?" His phone became another mystery. It was always face down, locked with a new password. He used to leave it lying around. Now he carried it everywhere, even to the bathroom. Emily didn't want to be the kind of wife who snooped, but the silence between them was starting to feel like a wall she couldn't break through. Chloe, on the other hand, seemed to grow bolder every day. She began taking over the house, painting the living room without asking, rearranging furniture, and calling it a much-needed touch. When Emily protested, Chloe just laughed. "Oh, don't be so uptight. I'm just making it look nicer." One morning, Emily walked into the kitchen and found Chloe cooking breakfast, in her apron, using her favorite pan. "Good morning," Chloe said cheerfully, flipping pancakes. "I hope you don't mind. I invited a few friends over for brunch. I thought it'd be fun." Emily's jaw clenched. Fun? In her home? Without even asking? Before she could respond, Ryan walked in, kissed Chloe on the cheek, and smiled. "You're the best, sis. The house feels so alive again." Emily just stood there, frozen. He hadn't spoken to her like that in months. Later that night, she tried to talk to him. "Ryan, this isn't working," she said softly. "She's taking over everything. I don't even feel like I live here anymore." Ryan's expression hardened. "You're exaggerating. Chloe's pregnant. She needs comfort, not your constant attitude." "My constant attitude?" Emily repeated, her voice rising. "I've done nothing but try to make peace. You don't even see how disrespectful she's been." He shook his head and muttered, "You're jealous, Emily." "It's pathetic." The words cut deep. Jealous of his sister? He had turned her pain into a joke. Days turned into weeks, and Emily felt her sanity slipping. The house no longer smelled like home. It smelled like Chloe's perfume, strong, sugary, everywhere. Her pictures disappeared from the hallway, replaced by Chloe's decorations. Her favorite quilt, the one her late mother had sewn for her, went missing. Emily searched every closet, every storage box. Nothing. When she finally asked Chloe, the woman shrugged and said, "Oh, that old thing. It was full of holes. I threw it out. You should thank me." Emily froze. For a moment, she couldn't even breathe. Her mother's quilt wasn't just fabric. It was the last piece of her, something she kept close whenever she missed her family. Her hands shook as she slammed the table. "How dare you?" she shouted, her voice cracking. "That was my mother's. You had no right." Chloe smirked, leaning against the counter. "Calm down, Emily. It's just a blanket." Ryan came running in, his tone sharp. "What's going on here?" "She threw away my mother's quilt," Emily cried. "She's been disrespecting me for weeks and you've done nothing." Ryan's face turned cold. "Enough. She's pregnant, Emily. Stop stressing her out." Emily's anger boiled over. She slammed her hand on the table again and yelled, "I'm your wife, not a guest in my own house." Ryan's eyes hardened. His next words felt like knives. "Then act like one." Emily stood there, shaking. In that moment, she realized something had broken beyond repair. He wasn't defending her. He wasn't even trying to understand. He had chosen Chloe again and again. That night, she called Tara. Her voice was small, tired but steady. "Something's not right, Tara. None of this makes sense." Tara didn't hesitate. Then stop playing nice, Em. Watch them. Quietly. See what's really going on. Emily nodded, wiping her tears. I will. From that night on, she started paying closer attention. She noticed that Chloe's so-called doctor appointments never lined up with her stories. She'd leave in the morning with a bag, but the hospital receipts Emily accidentally saw were from a beauty spa, not a clinic. The more Emily looked, the stranger it got. There were no prenatal vitamins, no medical reports, no ultrasounds on the fridge, and the few bills Chloe showed Ryan had mismatched dates and names. Emily started keeping quiet notes, photos of receipts, messages left on the counter, anything that didn't add up. It felt strange, spying in her own home. But she needed the truth. One evening, she overheard Chloe talking on the phone in the kitchen. Her voice was low but sharp. No, he doesn't know, Chloe whispered. Just stick to the plan. I'll handle her. Emily froze behind the doorway. Plan? Handle her? Her pulse raced. She backed away quietly and went to her room, locking the door. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she tried to make sense of it all. The betrayal, the lies, the humiliation. It was too much. But beneath the pain, something else stirred inside her, strength. She had spent months crying quietly, trying to save her marriage, begging for respect. But now she saw the truth. There was no marriage left to save. Ryan and Chloe had turned her home into a trap. But they didn't realize something. Emily wasn't weak. She was patient. And patience, when pushed too far, becomes power. As she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, she whispered to herself, "You think I'm blind, but I see everything." And for the first time in a long time, she meant it. Emily couldn't hold it in any longer. Days of pretending, of watching lies unfold in front of her, had pushed her to the edge. That evening, she found Chloe alone in the living room, scrolling on her phone with that same smug smile that had haunted Emily for weeks. Emily took a deep breath, her voice trembling but firm. Enough, Chloe. I know you've been lying. The doctor appointments, the fake bills, none of it makes sense. Tell me the truth. Who's the father of your baby? Chloe froze. For a second, she looked shocked, then quickly tried to laugh it off. What are you talking about? You've gone crazy. But Emily didn't back down. She stepped closer, her eyes locked on Chloe's. Don't lie to me again. I've seen the receipts. You haven't seen a doctor in months. So tell me, who is it? Chloe's face turned pale. Her hands shook. It's none of your business, she snapped, trying to walk away. Emily blocked her path. It is my business. You've been living in my house, destroying my marriage, using Ryan's guilt. I want the truth now. For a few long seconds, the room was silent except for Chloe's uneven breathing. Then suddenly, Chloe's voice exploded like a storm. Fine, she screamed, her face twisted with anger. You want the truth? Ryan's the father. Your perfect husband. He's the one who got me pregnant. The words hit Emily like a punch to the chest. She stood frozen, her heart pounding, her mind refusing to believe what she'd just heard. She turned toward the hallway, and there was Ryan, standing in the doorway. He hadn't planned to walk in just then, but fate had caught him. His face was pale, his eyes filled with guilt. Emily's voice cracked. Tell me she's lying. Ryan didn't speak. Not one word. He just looked at the floor. That silence said everything. Emily staggered back, her legs weak. Her whole body shook as she whispered, No, this can't be real. But Chloe kept going, her words full of venom. He said you never made him happy. He said you were cold, always working, never listening. He came to me because I cared. Shut up. Ryan yelled suddenly, his voice trembling with shame and anger. Emily looked between them, her husband and his sister, and felt her world collapse. Everything she'd built, everything she'd believed in, had turned into ashes. Tears streamed down her face as she shouted, How could you? Both of you. I gave up everything for this marriage for you. Ryan finally spoke, his tone broken and desperate. It wasn't supposed to happen. I was lost, Em. You were so focused on work, and I felt trapped. Chloe was there. She understood me. Emily stared at him, disgusted. You felt trapped? In the marriage I held together while you hid behind your lies? You slept with your sister, Ryan. You destroyed everything. Chloe began to cry, trying to play the victim. It wasn't like that. Don't you dare. Emily snapped, her voice full of fire. You came into my home pretending to need help, and you tore it apart. Ryan stepped forward, his hands raised as if to calm her. Emily, please, I made a mistake. Don't touch me, she screamed, pushing him away. Her tears turned to fury, her pain to strength. Get out of my sight, both of you. Ryan hesitated. Where will I go? Emily looked him straight in the eye. Anywhere but here. You made your choice the day you betrayed me. She turned away, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Then, without another word, she walked to the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, and began throwing Ryan's clothes into it. Her movements were sharp, controlled. No crying, no pleading, no second thoughts. Ryan stood at the door, silent, watching the woman he had once loved pack away his life. When she was done, she closed the suitcase, pushed it toward him, and said quietly, "Take your things and go." He opened his mouth to speak, but she cut him off. "Don't say sorry. Just leave." Ryan slowly picked up the suitcase and walked out, his head low. Chloe followed behind him, her face pale and empty. The door closed. The house fell silent. Emily stood there, shaking, surrounded by the wreckage of everything she thought she knew. Her heart ached, but she didn't break this time. She wiped her tears, sat on the edge of the bed, and took a deep breath. For the first time in months, the house was quiet, painfully, beautifully quiet. And as the night air drifted through the open window, Emily whispered to herself, "It's over." Not in defeat, but in strength, because deep down, she knew this ending wasn't her fall. It was the start of her rise. Emily hires a lawyer. Her hands shake a little as she signs the papers, but her heart feels steady for the first time in a long while. The lawyer looks at her and says, "You're doing the right thing." She nods. She isn't sure what right means anymore, but she knows she can't live like that again. News spreads fast. Ryan's affair with Chloe becomes public. Their family is shocked. His parents can't even look at him. Chloe tries to play the victim, but no one believes her. People start whispering about the baby, about the lies, about the betrayal. Ryan calls Emily, begging to talk. She lets the phone ring. She's done listening. Soon Ryan loses his job. His boss says the company doesn't need the bad attention. Chloe is left alone too, struggling to deal with the fallout. Everything they built on lies starts falling apart. Meanwhile, Emily starts fresh. She rents a small but bright apartment across town. It's quiet, peaceful, hers. She decorates it slowly. New curtains, a soft couch, a few plants by the window. One day she hangs her late mother's photo on the wall and whispers, "I made it, Mom." Work becomes her safe space. Her boss notices her focus and promotes her. For the first time, she feels proud again. Not because of someone else, but because of her own strength. Tara visits one evening with pizza and wine. They sit on the floor, laughing until they cry. Tara raises her glass and says, "To peace, and to finally choosing yourself." Emily smiles and clinks glasses. There are quiet nights too. Moments when the silence feels heavy, when the memories come back. But she doesn't crumble anymore. She breathes, writes in her journal, and reminds herself, "I'm free." Emily doesn't need Ryan's apology or Chloe's guilt. She has something better: peace, strength, and the courage to rebuild. The camera would fade out on Emily standing by her window, soft light falling on her face. Her expression is calm, strong, and full of quiet hope. She whispers to herself, "This time I'm enough." Months later, Emily returns to her old house to sign the final divorce papers. The place feels strange, quiet, lifeless, almost like a memory she has already let go of. Dust floats in the air as she walks through the hallway she once decorated with love. She pauses at the guest room door. It's open now, empty and cold. She stands there for a moment, remembering the night Ryan told her to move out, the night she cried herself to sleep in that same room. For a second, the pain tries to return, but it doesn't have the same power anymore. Emily runs her hand along the doorframe and whispers softly, "Never again will I shrink in my own home." Her voice is calm, not bitter, just certain. She walks to the living room table, places the house key beside the signed papers, and takes one last look around. Every wall, every corner once carried her dreams, but now she realizes her dreams have grown bigger than this house. As she steps outside, the sunlight hits her face. The air feels lighter, warmer, almost like a promise. She closes the gate behind her and doesn't look back. Emily smiles, not because she's happy the marriage is over, but because she's finally free to live on her own terms. She didn't lose a marriage, she reclaimed her life. Hey besties. Two Hearts, thank you so much for watching till the end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing stories. See you in the next one. Bye. Waving Hand Sparkles.